which is basically I got to win no matter what. And these people tend to become the jerks. And then, of course, you got the people who are just looking for any particular reason to tear into you and start insulting you and swearing at you. With me, I got a big target on my back because of some of the things I like that I incorporate into the games. Because I'm a brony. So I immediately get targeted. And then what's really funny is I kind of turn it around on them and I start focusing on them instead of the other people. Then they quit and everyone laughs. It's like, don't troll a skillful gamer because you're just going to get hurt.
You're the same way I am, man.
So, and
so are you
what? Yeah, I'm in the league, but
are you a Grand Theft Auto player at all?
Yes, I do play Grand Theft Auto. I play it because it's a sandbox game.
Yeah. Do you
and on the PC you can mod it. There's a lot you can do with it on PC.
Oh, I know. My computer can't handle that though. That's right.
Oh, by the way, we're coming
up, not all high tech.
By the way, we're coming up to a break. We gotta let our sponsor play here. Otherwise, we'll be out of business. So, here's the commercial. Hey, everybody! This portion of our conversation is brought to you by Milk Biscuit. They guarantee to make your teeth white, your bones strong, good looking, and above average. And that review brought to you by Milk Biscuit. Milk Biscuit, located. So we're back to our show with Phoenix Drake and Scott. Go ahead.
Yeah, my computer can't handle all the PC version. It crashes.
So
how powerful of a computer do you need to play with that, Phoenix?
Well, it depends on the type of games you have. A game like Grand Theft Auto, it depends on which Grand Theft Auto you got. If you get one of the newer ones, I want to say 4 because that's the newest one on PC. You need a pretty decent computer, specifically with RAM and a good graphics card to play that because there's a lot of graphics, there's a lot of fine details. But that game is nothing compared to some of the games that are out there that you can play on the computer. And you go and you look at some of these games, it doesn't say that you need a whole lot in certain aspects. And, Arma 2 is a perfect example. You really don't need a lot of computing power to actually play it. That's not the problem. The problem comes with the RAM and the graphics card because it's just how much there is. And when I first got the good computer I have before I upgraded it, Arma 2 was one of the games I wanted to play. I had gotten it, but the computer I had before, it didn't have enough power, it didn't have enough of anything. I go, now I can play it. No, I can't. I'm still lacking somewhere. So when I looked, I saw what I needed. So I've got a computer that can run it smoothly now. I don't really know all the details, but I know I've got one of the best graphics cards out there. It cost me $700 for this graphics card.
Now I would imagine you also need a really high-speed internet for that, right?
Oh, well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're playing online, yes, especially on Arma 2. Yes, you really need a high-speed internet. If you're not playing online, well then the internet really doesn't matter.
Okay.
But for online games, it depends on what game you are. But typically, you really need a pretty good high-speed internet to play online. So, yeah. But you also need a computer that can handle the graphics and everything else that the game that you have in the game. And if you've noticed one thing, video games just came out in the 1980s, 1990s when they first started coming out. And you know what they had? then, because you can remember that 2D, the pixels, that stuff, and that was state-of-the-art then. Now you're looking at video games that you're playing on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, or your computer, and it's like 3D. It's staggering just how much detail they have in these games. I mean, you just go and you look, and you're sitting there going, what's the next step from this? Especially if you see some of the games they have on the PS4, on PlayStation 4, and the Xbox One, it's just like, what's the next step up?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you know,
it's just like,
you guys are talking about what's the next step up and all that. I mean, with 1080p and all the mumbo jumbo junk out there, but and you guys are all amazed about that. But let me give you my perspective of what it is in my world. Okay, I grew up in the Philippines, in that island, in Cagayan Island, and I know Scott doesn't really know this because he's only been watching my video for a little bit. Scott, I grew up in the Philippines, and I grew up in a very small island, with no running water, no electricity at that time, and it's whatever you see on TV about the village and stuff like that. And so there's nothing there. And as far as we kids, whatever we wanted to play with, we had to make it. We had to make the toys. There was no store or malls that we could go to. And one of the particular game or toy that it comes to mind right now is there was an older guy. He's probably about 3 years older than I was, and he made the best go-kart. Well, it's not a go-kart. It would be similar to a big wheel, and you know, in the 1980s, where the big wheels and all that stuff.
oh, okay, I remember having one of those.
Yeah. So, but in this case, his big wheel was about, I don't know, 5 times bigger than the average big wheel, and it was all made out of wood, and it was all carved. And in our school, there was this hill. I don't know. This hill was probably about 300 feet high, higher than the road. Talk about fun, man. We would load up this big wheel, wooden big wheel, and we'd let it rip going down this hill. I tell you what, man.
It doesn't sound like it would be fun.
we would race this down all the way down to the hill. I swear, man, you thought you were gonna die. And you ran right into the road where sometimes cars or you know, dogs and jeepneys and whatever else that came by, and that was our toy. So why?
That's actually very cool if you sit there and think about it, because I didn't know that in areas like that, especially 30 years ago, they really didn't have much. It's sort of, I guess the phrase, you got to use your imagination.
Hey, there you go.
I mean, you go and you look at what kids have to say. I mean, you know, even looking at what I had compared to what you had, you know, I had some basic stuff. I had access to toys. If you want a toy, you had to use your imagination, or you had to get creative and make something. You know, a stick becomes a sword. A stick, if it's right, becomes like a little pistol, so you can play cowboys and Indians or something like that. You know, and there was no electricity, so there's no TV, there's nothing like that. So kids today, you know, they have the internet, they have television. Of course, most of us on television today is not what I really define as good watching, but they have phones, and it's all electronics. They don't, most kids today don't know how to think. They don't know how to imagine. You didn't have a choice. It was either you use your imagination to create stuff so that you could have fun with what you had. My dad had to do the same thing, even though he was over here in Indiana. He had to do pretty much the same thing. He had a little bit more than what you had because of location, but still, you got to use your imagination to create fun for yourself. Most kids today can't do that. It's electronic overload, and I think Scott, both you and Scott can agree with me on that. Is that true?
Well, I do. I agree totally.
You know, when it comes to watching TV or movies, this is something interesting. Not too many kids in our village could go up to the main island and to the big city and watch a movie theater. Because, you know, most people in our village was pretty poor, and I was fortunate to have an American father who was pretty wealthy, and occasionally we would travel to the big cities to do shoppings and groceries and whatnot. And one of the things that the highlight of my day when we went to going to the city is watching a movie. Now back then, the movie always consisted of a double. It was a double feature, and the movie started at 1:00 in the afternoon. And of course, there's two movies, so one lasted until about 4:00, and then from 4:00 you rush to the next movie theater and watch it until about 9:00, and you could watch literally 3 sessions in a whole day. And so I would do that. I would watch all these movies, and of course at that time it was Bruce Lee, it was most of the German-American War, Japanese wars, and all that stuff.
The cowboy flags, stuff like that, yeah.
And here's the funny part. When I get home back to the village and the island, guess where the people watch movie? I was standing on stage telling them about this movie. I was reenacting these movie scenes, and that's how people got to watch movie in our village. They would watch me and me telling them what the movie was about.
Nice.
But later on, we had the first television in our side of the island. We had the first electricity, first running water, and the TV was, I think it was still black and white. And so my dad said, okay, and the people would flock in our house. I mean, our house did not have any door. Anybody could walk in and out of there anytime they wanted. And everybody was welcome. Everybody was, you know, the truest sense of a neighbor. And so my dad said, you know, collect, you know, a dime for each person that wanted to watch TV, just to cover the cost. You know, the problem was everybody that watched the movie or TV was a buddy of mine, so I'd be lucky if I could collect a dime. So, yeah, that was, I tell you, growing up in the Philippines, I could envision both worlds, from the lowest to the highest, you know, from nothing to what we have now here in the United States, and it's amazing, man. It's incredible, but
it's quite a difference if you think about it.
Yes, it is. And I've seen the difference between the generations of my time and the generations of Jackie and AJ, where they just sit right in front of the TV. They just sit right in front of the TV, and you know, they don't have the energy to do anything. And the most horrible part is the TV does their imagination for them. You know? Yeah, so, well, Scott, this was supposed to be your story, so go ahead.
I do have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Shoot.
Why did you move to America?
because I had a sickness in my mind. You know, my dad was born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and I don't know. I just wanted to explore the United States, but later on, later in life, my dad and my mom divorced, and the whole thing fell apart. And I could have gone to the best schools and studied anything I wanted, and my dad could have afforded, paid for it. But I was too smart for my own. That's when Johnny B. Good brain started to strike, and and so when the whole thing fell apart, I had no educational background and literally nothing to make me qualify for anything. And I can't, back home in the Philippines, I cannot compete with the local, because a lot of people are very smart back home, highly educated, even though there's not a whole lot of job to be had. And even the most meager job there is out there requires certain college degrees and college level, because that's just how many are available out there. There's so many college graduates without a job, so the employers can afford to be choosers of who they hire. And
that's how it is here. So
yeah,
and that's probably how it is around the world. So
so if you're the employer, who are you going to hire? A high school dropout, or somebody who graduated college and pays the same? So as of now, right now, if I wanted to go home in the Philippines, I would. I don't think I could even get a job. So because, as I said, there's a lot of smart people out there, and by the grace of God, I'm out here with with the Johnny B. Good brain, and I'm doing all right. I'm having.
Hey, you get to do what you wanted. You said you wanted to explore the United States. You get to do that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's just and I've seen a lot of the United States that most Americans will never see. And as I said, from the island living to touring the United States is quite a different perspective in my world, I guess. So I get to enjoy the highest and the lowest. So Scott, any plans for future schooling, college, or training?
I want to go to school to get my CDL.
Okay.
And then I want to go into law enforcement as well.
Law enforcement. Oh, there you go.
Oh, bit of both. That sounds kind of like Eric Smith, doesn't it? Sort of.
Yeah, Eric Smith and Brian, and they're both into law enforcement. And that's actually pretty nice for you, Scott, is take your CDL, be a over-the-road truck driver for about a year or so, then become a law enforcement, and I think you will become a really better law enforcement out there with your truck driving background. I mean, you're still 19, you've got the time.
That's why I want to do it now than later.
Yeah. So just
it's the perfect time, especially when you're young. The older you get, the harder it gets to do these things. Not just because it's harder to take the information. It's just these things take time, and the older you get, well, unfortunately, the less time you have.
Yeah, I should do the law enforcement now, get the schooling over with, because I can't drive until I'm 21 anyway.
There you go. Yeah.
And once I hit 21, get my CDL, get into a company and drive for a while. And
Yeah.
see what you guys mentioned.
From
Sounds
what
like a
I
plan.
from what I gathered from Eric Smith, who is in law enforcement, and he's also been around truck driving all his life, and he himself does towing. I think he's a better law enforcement. He's a little bit more sympathetic to truck drivers than most.
I think I heard he was in Kentucky. He's in Kentucky, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in Kentucky, just right across the river from Cincinnati.
So he's actually pretty close to where I am at too. Wow, it is a small world.
Hey. Oh.
So, Brian, Scott, where are you at right now? Are you at home?
I am at home. I just, before I called you, I just got back to the house. I went shopping, picked up dinner,
Okay.
and then I called you.
So
Here we are now.
do you ever bake stuff for your mom, for your family?
I make that beer bread once in a while.
Beer bread.
Beer bread, yeah.
What do? You put a can of Budweiser in it?
You can put any beer in it.
Really? I was just joking. I've never even heard of a beer. I've heard of a beer bratwurst. I've never heard of a beer bread before. But
Yeah, look it up. It's pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Actually,
if I was gonna make it, and that's what I would send you.
okay, well,
I'd send you beer bread.
you know,
you had it here on Google. I just Googled it, and I've got like 20 recipes right here for beer bread.
you know,
I use my own from my grandmother. So
it'd be neat if you could send. Hey, Blue's birthday's coming up pretty soon.
There we go.
Bake
Is it
Blue,
now?
Bake Blue a birthday cake in her shape. No, you gotta
that'd be hard.
you gotta make her a little slimmer, otherwise she'll be mad.
I'll make the cake blue.
There you go. Well, I think it's time for another commercial. And Phoenix, I think it's your turn.
Oh wow! There you go.
Come on, Phoenix, do your best.
Let's see. Once again, this show has been brought to you by sand. It's everywhere. Get used to it. I know I just borrowed that from Latin King of Thieves, but that's the funniest commercial I've ever heard. It's not the funniest one I've ever seen, though. The funniest commercial I've ever seen was the Budweiser commercials that they had for the Super Bowl.
Oh man.
Those were just beyond ridiculous.
The funniest
Which I think
commercial.
was the point.
The funniest commercial I've ever seen was Odor Eater, when a pair of shoes was put on the floor, and you know that odor eater in the form of a ball, they open and then you put it in your shoe.
Yeah.
Well, the commercial, what they did is they put a odor eater ball in a pair of shoes, and the skunk come out. the skunk came out of a shoe, and I thought that was original. I thought that was pretty cool. So, what's your commercial there, Scott?
I don't watch much TV, so really a commercial really doesn't come to mind right now. Let me think about it, and I'll get back to you on that.
All right. All right, we'll get back to the second half of our show. Oh man, you guys are helping me quite a bit, man. You guys are helping me pass the time. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Hey.
That's what we're here for.
It's a long drive. Driving around the country, driving a truck, I can see the allure. You get to see the country, you get to see a lot of things, but there's also a lot of other things other than just sitting behind the wheel and operating what you need to operate to drive the truck from point A to point B. There's a lot more to it. And I find that fascinating that you show that, because you watch some of these other truck driving videos, they don't show that stuff, for one reason or another. You show some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, if you will. What you can that you won't get in trouble for. You show what it takes to fuel the truck. You show what you do when you check tires and stuff. It's kind of fascinating what all there is to it, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot more than just driving a truck. You always got to keep an eye to make sure the truck's in good shape. You got to make sure it's, basic maintenance like what you have with a car. You also got to make sure that your trailer is working. You got to make sure that everything on the trailer is fine. And that's just the basic covering of it. It's just, wow, there's so much more to it. I'm sure Scott had that same thought when he saw some of the videos. He's like, wow, I didn't realize there was this much to it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just driving.
Yeah, you do show a lot more than most other trucker videos do. That's what I like about yours.
When Lee Shaver, when I was in LA last 2 trips ago, I think it was, when I was down there, Lee used to be a tow truck driver, and he had this, as many of you guys noticed, that I use a hammer to thump the tires and check for pressure and all that stuff. And so Lee couldn't stand me using the hammer. So Lee had one of those wooden tire buddy, they call them. What it is, it's just, it looks like a baseball bat, but it's pretty small. And
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I'm getting tired of the hammer. Here, use this. Yeah.
So anyway, Lee gave me his when he was working as a tow truck, and I feel like I've been handed a baton or a scepter, like from one king to the other. Like, here's your here's your sword. Yeah, there you go, a sword, a king's sword. So, and I've been using it quite a bit too. So, and that was
it worked.
And that was brought to you by Lee Shaver from California.
Speaking of Lee Shaver, I still remember I don't know if Scott's seen it, but I remember that when you went to that truck show with him, that was really cool.
Yep.
Oh, no, I don't remember that.
Yeah, he was kind enough to actually pick me up and brought me to a truck show there, so that was pretty cool. And
nice. Sitting there,
he's
just walking up and down, looking at all those trucks, some of which were brand new, and some that were really hot rodded.
Yeah. And some of them were just really bored and way too much time and money in our hands. Yeah.
Have money blended it.
Can you imagine if the floorboard of a truck was made out of thick plexiglass? That would be cool, right?
Ooh. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a clear floor.
I don't imagine how practical that would be, but
yeah. So,
or cheap, because that's not cheap.
Well, most of these guys are not into the trucking for the money. They, I don't know, man.
No, they truck for the sense of you get to explore, and you kind of have a sense of being your own boss at times. You get to pick your routes, you get to pick where you go. You generally have an idea of how many times you just had to stop. Most truck drivers won't stop very much, for obvious reasons. It wastes time, and that sometimes they don't have what to waste, especially when they're on recaps like what you've seen, where it's just like, oh, come on.
Yeah. There was a very, very sad story I heard this week. And it was a truck driver that won the lottery in California,
Ooh.
And he brought home, now this is his take home, he brought home $25 million. So I would imagine he probably won like, what, 40 million or something like that, right?
Well, probably something like that, because they do take a chunk out of that for tax purposes or something.
Well, this guy brought home 25 million. So what he did is he bought himself, I don't know, so many brand new trucks, so many brand new trailers. He spent about $6 million on a yard, and a couple $100,000 on the electronics. And well, 2 years later, he filed for bankruptcy, and he sold all his trucks back to like a truck dealer, a used truck dealership, and he's back to work. He's back to work driving a truck, and I think, I don't know why, I think people invest what, $20 million in a business in a sense of pride or self-worth or self-accomplishment, and this guy did not know anything about trucking, even though he was a truck driver. I don't know if I mentioned that he was a truck driver when he played, when he won this lottery.
Well, driving the truck and kind of running the business are two different things. It's two different sets of knowledge that's needed, because running a trucking business is like running lots of other businesses. You got logistics, you got economics, you got payroll, because you got to think about the people who work for you, the people who work in your warehouses, if you have your trucking yard, the truck drivers. And there's just, when you're driving a truck, you go to a truck driving school and you learn the ropes of driving the truck, what you need to do to drive the truck and to work with the trailer, so you're going to be pulling behind the truck. That's one set of knowledge. When you own a company, whether it be a trucking company or another company, that's an entirely different set of knowledge that you need. And some people can handle it without going to college and learning it, and some people can't. Some people kind of need that additional bit of information. Like I said, some people can self-teach, some can't. Clearly, this guy was one that couldn't self-teach.
Yeah. And just like everything else in life, a lot of successful business people are rare. Otherwise, everybody would be a successful business. I mean, there are processes in life that are seep out the rest, and only for the few. So, and I think in everything else in life, life is very selective. Only the few out there that are able to make it in every aspect of life. I mean, whether you're a student, in a room full of students, there's only one or two, really smart people out there. The rest are just average, and below, and any business is just the way the same is. A lot of people try it, and a lot of people fail. So,
I mean, some people say, what about companies? Yes, there's a lot of companies you're aware of, but there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of companies that get formed every day that you're not aware of. I mean, the ones that you see regularly, the restaurant chains, the store chains, and all that stuff, that's very few out of how many there actually are. That's a very small percentage. We just think of that as a lot because there's a decent number that come to mind. That's actually nothing, if you think about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there's a lot of people that try and fail that we don't even know about. They don't even hit the mark to count. So yeah. Phoenix, we keep saying to the floor is we give the floor to Scott, and we keep taking it over. So
No, I enjoy listening, so don't worry about that.
come on, Scott, you gotta voice out here, otherwise Phoenix will steal the show.
Actually, we'll both steal the show.
I can't speak out.
Come on, Scott.
I guess there's a pecking order here. Scott, go ahead.
I don't know what to say.
You just did.
At the time, I wasn't thinking, and I wasn't.